So this weekend, Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur clash once again at Old Trafford. And of course, we therefore need a tactical preview. So that's exactly what we're going to do. But we're going to do it a little bit differently. See, I could sit here and talk to you about sustained possession structures, you know, how you can counter press, things like that. We could go through all of that stuff which we normally would. However, today I want to hone in on one particular part of the game. And that is high pressing and playing out from the back. And the reason for that is because in this game, we have two sides in the top 3 for high turnovers in the Premier League so far this season. So this means that these are two of the best sides at winning the ball back incredibly high up the pitch. So for me, I could see a game where, you know, this is where it's going to be won and lost. Can you win the ball high, but also, at your end, can you play out from the back? So let's look at how both teams will approach this and how United can get the upper hand.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com. The home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
So we're going to start off with United trying to play out from the back, because this is an area where United struggle and Spurs will look to take advantage of that. Now initially it looks like they will be in a 4-3-3 in possession. However, what will happen is this will soon turn to a 4-4-2. Timo Werner will move to one side to apply pressure to one of the centre-backs, and then Kulusevski, who will most likely play in the 10 in this game, will then push high to form a 4-4-2 shape. And we can see the 4-4-2 here. And we've got an example of it over on Once Video Analyzer Pro. Great video analysis software. Link in the description if you want to check it out. But we can see that front two here. We can see on this occasion, Lo Celso here has pushed forward to form a front two. And then you've got the left winger here. We can't quite see the winger on the other side, but you get the picture. We can see Spurs playing in a 4-4-2 on the high press. So the question is, how can United take advantage of this and play out from the back under this pressure? Well, actually, I think initially it's fairly straightforward. Kobbie Mainoo playing as the solo pivot initially could be the strategy. Let's push Bruno Fernandes and McTominay a little bit further forward, although not too far. And let's try and make this diamond at the back with Onana, Johnny Evans, Raphael Varane and Kobbie Mainoo to keep the play-out structure, you know, pretty basic, trying to move the ball from the back. This could give United some success simply because it's a 4 versus 2 in these situations. So either the centre-backs can split really wide and Spurs will stay narrow, meaning that our centre-backs can receive the ball with a little bit of time before getting their head up and looking to play forward, or Spurs will widen a little bit, try and apply pressure to our centre-backs, and this therefore will leave Kobbie Mainoo free to receive on the turn in the middle of the pitch, which is of course exactly what we want. However, that looks quite straightforward. Spurs will not let it be that easy. Now, the reason that it won't be that straightforward for United is because Spurs are quite adaptable from a tactical point of view, and they do have a second pressing structure which they can use, and that will involve one of the deeper midfielders now pushing up, and it actually becomes borderline a back 4, then a solo pivot, then a 3, and then a 2 like this. And of course the aim here is to stop Kobbie Mainoo, the solo pivot, getting on the ball, and again we've got examples of this over on Once Video Analyzer Pro. We can see on this occasion Oliver Skipp has pushed up between the two wingers. We've still got a central midfielder incredibly high up the pitch. This is that 3-2 shape. We'll see the pivot behind them and then the back 4 just out of picture. But we can see this is now a different pressing shape to try and get pressure in these areas here. And we've got a few different examples of this. This is in a different game against Bournemouth. Again, on this occasion, Pape Matar Sarr has pushed forward onto the opposition pivot, and we can see Lo Celso forming the front 2 with Richarlison. With the aim being, force the ball one way, then that 3 is going to squeeze across and win the ball back nice and high up the pitch. And this is one of the reasons they are so good and they rank so high for those high turnovers. We can see it again, Pape Matar Sarr high in the midfield, Kulusevski high forming a front 2, applying pressure in some really dangerous positions. So the question is, if you're Manchester United, how do you adapt to that? Now this is where it could get a little bit more complicated for Manchester United, because this is a good pressing structure from Spurs, and now we can see that Kobbie Mainoo doesn't have the time to receive the pass. Now yes, he is press resistant, so there is a chance we could use this shape and he's going to get on the turn and play out from the back. But I think it would be wrong to be so over-reliant and dependent on one individual player. So if Spurs do shift to this pressing structure, United probably need to change how they play out from the back. And what I would do is revert back to a system we've seen at times in recent weeks, with Onana and Raphael Varane forming a back 2 like this at goal kicks, and Johnny Evans pushing a little bit higher up the pitch into midfield. Or he could move round to left back, which we've seen as well, and Dalot could invert into these areas because he is more press resistant. I'm not sure, you know, what way around would be better with Dalot and Evans. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Dalot inside, Evans inside. Let me know what you think. But the benefit of using this shape is that we can now really overload the centre of the pitch. So let's say the ball is playing out from the back. We've now got a 2-4-2-3 shape, allowing United to try and move the ball. But how is this going to allow that? Well, again, first of all, we have the numerical overload in this first phase. We've got Onana, Raphael Varane, Kobbie Mainoo and Dalot, or Evans, up against Werner and Kulusevski, and potentially Skip as well. So once again, United have the numerical overload and the ability to play out from the back. For example, Varane could start with the ball goes to Onana, Werner would come around like this. There's potential to, if Kulusevski then presses, to then play passes into these sorts of areas here. Or Kulusevski might be a little bit more passive, like this, but then as Onana gets the ball, he can go to Varane, and then we can play a diagonal pass to Dalot, and now 2 versus 1 on this side, etc, etc. The other option is to use the more physical presences slightly higher up the pitch, with Scott McTominay and Rasmus Højlund in particular. Spurs are pretty decent at defending the long ball, but, long balls can cause a bit of chaos for anyone. And if you can go long, having drawn Spurs onto you, if you can now go long, win that first ball, and then get on the second ball, with, these Spurs midfielders caught much higher up the pitch, there is now the chance to get on the ball, get down, and quickly transition and play forward. So that is how I think United can play out from the back successfully and stop Spurs doing so well with those high turnovers, which they are so good at. But the question is, how can United now do the reverse and actually press high? Now, Manchester United's pressing structure has been a topic of discussion all season long, and despite ranking third for high turnovers, the system isn't perfect and certainly isn't reliable. There are certain games where United press incredibly well, win the ball back constantly, and we see, 198 turnovers over the course of the season. However, there are other games where it is a little bit flawed, particularly against sides with width in the first phase, but also good ball-playing goalkeepers, Vicario ticking that box. So what is the problem with United's current structure in the press? I'll quickly go over it. The ball will often be played one way by the opposition, let's say to the right centre-back. As a result, Rasmus Højlund will then come over like this, and Garnacho will use that as the trigger to come over here onto Van de Ven. The problem with this is that Wan-Bissaka doesn't then push high up here, and the United forwards can be quite passive at times, which means that if the players deep in these phases can get time on the ball and either go into a midfielder or go back to the goalkeeper, they can then use the far side fullback as the spare man, which is of course a problem. However, in this particular game, that may not be the case, on such a regular basis. And the reason for that is because of how Spurs look to play out from the back. So how do Spurs look to play out from the back? Well, initially they push their midfielders a little bit higher. Bentancur will most likely play as a solo pivot in midfield. However, he will have company alongside him, because the far side fullback will invert into midfield. So let's say Udogie has the ball on the left-hand side. Pedro Porro will move into this area here, incredibly narrow, or it can happen the other way around. Let's say Emerson's got the ball, Porro will go wide, and Udogie will invert, as we can see here. On this occasion, we've got Udogie just behind me. Let me move myself out of the way there. We've got Udogie over there, nice and narrow, and then we've also got Pedro Porro on the other side, who's not exactly hugging the touchline. Now, what we'll see is that this swaps as the ball gets played. So Spurs play down the left-hand side, so Udogie moves further to the left, and Pedro Porro is now going to invert into midfield. So they always have that 2 in there. And there's plenty of examples of this from all across the season, but particularly in this Burnley game. So now we can see Spurs are playing down the right-hand side. Porro is the one who is slightly wider, not as connected to the centre-back, but Udogie is going to invert. And this just continues to happen. Here we can see they're both much narrower, particularly Pedro Porro though, who is actually going to dart all the way almost into a 6th position to receive the ball and get on the turn. So of course that is a good structure which Spurs are using. However, it might play into the hands of United just a little bit. And why is that? Well, because United's weakness in the press is now gone. So let's say United were now to use the exact same pressing structure as what they normally do. So Vicario plays one way, Højlund comes over, and Garnacho comes over onto one of the centre-backs. Now, what was the weakness before? The opposition could find the spare fullback holding the width on the other side. But Spurs don't have that. Spurs don't have that. They do not have that far fullback on the other side to use as an out ball. So, United can take advantage of this, but it's important that they do it in the right way. So what is the right way? Now, in my opinion, there are 2 key things here. One being that I think Pedro Porro is better narrow in deep areas than what Udogie is, and also that I think Van de Ven is the better ball-playing defender, particularly from centre-back. Of course, not Emerson's natural position. Therefore, United should try and force the ball to Spurs' right hand side. Bear with me on this. So Rasmus Højlund should start on Van de Ven at goal kick, something a little bit like this, with Rashford sort of in between the two here. However, as the ball gets played and goes back to the goalkeeper, Rasmus Højlund should now curve his run to force Spurs to play towards their right hand side. So Højlund now curves his run like this, curving the run being the important thing. If he runs straight, it's really easy to play past him. He's got to curve his run. If he does this, he can force Vicario one way. What is the consequence of this? Well, we know that when the ball is on this side, Porro will therefore be the wider defender. So Højlund can keep curving his run and kind of follow the ball and come towards Emerson. Rashford can sit on Porro, Bentancur is going to be in here, and Udogie is going to be in here. Now we can go, largely man for man in these areas, like so. So we've got Rasmus Højlund has kind of curved his run, started here, forced the ball one way like this, and now he can sort of stand here if you like. He can kind of stand in this in-between position, or he can continue to press. But now when Spurs look for that outball on the other side, it isn't there because of Udogie inverting. And therefore, Rashford is on Porro, Fernandes is on Bentancur, and Bentancur is not as press resistant as what Basuma would be. Spurs' typical number 6. So there's an advantage there. United could go, at times, man for man in the midfield. I also think Kobbie Mainoo against Oliver Skipp. I think Mainoo could win that battle because he has shown good strength in recent weeks. And then McTominay on Kulusevski. McTominay, man for man, should be able to win that battle. What we saw in the first game against Spurs was that we actually pressed reasonably well, but then lost the man-to-man battle in midfield. Casemiro lost to Maddison because he couldn't keep up with him and his twisting and turning. And Fernandes lost to Basuma. I think it will be different in this game because of Spurs having injuries. Therefore, I think with Spurs using quite a narrow shape in the first phase, I think United can win the ball back quite high. And I think that will be the story of this game. Both teams looking to turn the ball over high in the final third, as they have done all season long. The battle might come down to which side can do it, with a more ruthless nature. Which team can take their chances? Will it be Rashford or Richarlison? Højlund or Werner? Brennan Johnson or Garnacho? Who can supply the pass? Kulusevski or Bruno Fernandes? They will be the interesting battles. Of course, the game will be played in different states and different phases. There will be spells where Spurs dominate possession and have control. There will also be spells where United take control of the ball for 5 minutes and pop it about. That will of course happen in the game. But I do think the most important thing will be both teams trying to press and win the ball back nice and high. So that's how I think United can get an advantage in that key area. Let me know some of the other areas you think United can take control with in the comments down below though. Perhaps it's counter-attacking against that Spurs high line. Let me know what you think. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.